This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
This podcast is supported by Google. Hey everyone, David here, one of the product leads for Google Gemini. Check out VO3, our state-of-the-art AI video generation model, in the Gemini app, which lets you create high-quality, 8-second videos with native audio generation. Try it with the Google AI Pro plan or get the highest access with the Ultra plan. Sign up at gemini.google to get started and show us what you create.
Meta is in hot water for how its AI has been trained to talk to minors, and it's really bad. OpenAI has responded to GPT-5 backlash and made things, I think, more confusing and convoluted than they needed to be. And Apple, after not being able to compete on the AI software side, is apparently shifting its focus to AI hardware. So the biggest tech companies in the world, as almost every single week, have made some big news on the AI scene. And maybe you didn't spend hours every single day catching everything that was important. Well, don't worry. Spend your Mondays with us, and we will keep you up to date, bringing you only the AI news that matters. What's going on, y'all? My name is Jordan Wilson, and welcome to Everyday AI. We are your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter, helping everyday business leaders like you and me not just keep up with AI, but how we can leverage it to get ahead and grow our companies and our careers. If that's what you're trying to do, you're in the right place. It starts here with the unedited, unscripted live stream and podcast. But if you want to take it to the next level, you got to go to our website at youreverydayai.com. There, you can go listen to nearly 600 episodes from some of the smartest people in the world on AI. Go listen to it, read it, all for free. But also, we're going to be recapping today's episode in our free daily newsletter. So make sure you go check that out. All right, let's get into it. Don't waste so much time every single week wondering what's happening with all this AI news. We're just going to break it down for you. Let's get into it. Live stream audience, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Douglas saying good morning. Dennis joining us from New Jersey. Rolando from South Florida. Miguel joining us from Puerto Montt. Thank you, everyone. Posse from Finland. Yeah, we do this live podcast audience. We always appreciate your support. But if you want to come hang out and ask questions and network with other people, make sure you join us on the live stream. All right. Our first piece of AI news, OpenAI has made some updates that, personally, I don't think are very good. So there's been a lot of recent backlash on GPT-5. So OpenAI has softened GPT-5's tone and has updated its messages limit. So OpenAI announced that they will make their new flagship model, GPT-5, warmer, and has restored also GPT-4o access for paid users after pushback over tone and the model removal. So now there is a 3,000 limit message cap for people on paid plans. So OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said that GPT-5's tone will be warmer, but quote unquote, not as annoying to most users as GPT-4o was. So now if you are on a paid plan, you can essentially enable legacy models, and GPT-4o will be selectable again for paid users after its brief removal sparked strong reactions from users who preferred its supportive style. Yeah, or sycophancy, right? Yeah, a lot of users were like, hey, I lost this chatbot that just told me how brilliant I was and blindly validated all of my ideas. And the internet went in uproar. So anyways, also, OpenAI changed how their models work and which models were used depending on the scenario. So now most paid users, if you go to ChatGPT, you will have different varieties of GPT-5, which are now labeled as auto, fast, and thinking modes. And if you are on a pro plan, you will see a pro mode as well. So the whole point of this moving over to GPT-5 was to make the model selection easier. So now you have up to 4 variations of GPT-5. And then you also now have these old legacy models as well. So I don't know, did OpenAI really win in their battle to simplify using the platform? I don't think so. I don't think so, right? I was actually personally very happy with how it was when it was released, but now it seems like it's getting a little more convoluted. It seems like OpenAI here is trying to please too many people. And I think that so many users in a bad way have become reliant on this old model. And a lot of, you literally saw thousands of users sharing about this online, right? Saying, hey, I use GPT 4.0 as a therapist, as my best friend, right? So probably troublesome that it got to that point to begin with. But essentially, these people, all poured out and said, hey, you took away something that was supporting my emotional development. We need it back. And OpenAI said, okay, here you go. But GPT-5 is pitched as a more reliable kind of chatbot with what they call PhD level skills in writing, coding, math, and science, plus optional personalities that you can choose, such as cynic, robot, listener, and nerd, that drew kind of mixed reviews. If you want the full rundown on this, we did a couple of episodes last week right after GPT-5 was released. So you can go check that out, episode 585, where we did a recap on GPT-5's release, as well as 7 big trends you should know. And then on episode 587, where I broke down some of the initial backlash where people were just missing the sycophancy of, GPT-5 no longer validating absolutely terrible ideas. So if you want to know more and into this whole fiasco, make sure you go check out those 2 episodes. All right, our next piece of AI news. According to reports, publishers are losing up to 79% of their referral traffic from Google's AI news summaries. That's pushing their links below the AI overview, making it a dramatic hit to many publishers. So a new report from Digital Content Next, which was cited by PC Mag, found a median 10% year-over-year drop in referral traffic across major publishers in just 8 weeks, signaling sustained short-term damage to ad and subscription revenue for many publishers. Previously, the Pew Research Center analyzed and showed that users who see AI summaries from Google are significantly less likely to click external links, meaning the feature not only reshuffles rankings, but often eliminates visits to websites altogether. So NPR and industry insiders describe the change as a quote unquote extinction level event for some local and niche outlets, highlighting real risks to newsroom jobs and investigative reporting capacity. So publishers report examples on social platforms where they're seeing 70 to 80% drops in click-through rates from Google, reflecting both anecdotal and measured losses that compound existing revenue challenges. So industry groups argue that using publishers' content to train AI without permission amounts to unfair use of journalistic labor, and they are pushing for opt-outs, compensation models, or regulatory action. All right, I've been talking about this for multiple years, right? As a former journalist, I see both sides to this story, but I've been saying literally since 2023, there's only 3 ways this shakes out, and I will repeat it for small, medium, and giant size publishers. Either number 1, you sue the large AI labs, which may or may not be successful, and we'll see how the New York Times versus OpenAI lawsuit ultimately shakes out. That's been going on for nearly 2 years. So number 1, you sue the publishers. Number 2, you enter into some form of a licensing agreement. Or number 3, you go out of business. So those are the 3 options. And I would assume that almost every single small, medium, and large publisher will have to choose one of those 3 options in the next few years. All right. Next piece of AI news, y'all. Google has debuted a very impressive new small language model called Gemma 3270M. Yeah, not the easiest name to roll off the top of the tongue, but Google DeepMind has released Gemma 3270M, a compact language model focused on energy efficiency and local deployment. So, a small language model that can run on browsers, phones, and low power devices. So, the new version of Google's popular Gemma 3 is designed for practicality over scale, trading large parameter counts for low power use, fast fine tuning, and easy on device deployment. So the model bundles a large 256,000 vocabulary with a compact transformer core, so it can handle rare tokens and domain-specific prompts despite its small size. Google also provides pre-trained, instruction-tuned, and quantization-aware checkpoints to help teams move quickly from prototype to production. A quantized build running on a Pixel 9 Pro reportedly used under 1% battery for dozens of conversations. So yeah, this is a huge step forward for extremely light. I mean, when you talk about lightweight, this isn't even a billion parameters. This is 270 million parameters. So a just so small model, right? We saw OpenAI as an example, their GPT-OSS, extremely impressive open weights models that can be downloaded and essentially run for free. So now Google came in with Gemma 3270. That is, my math isn't great here, but that's 1% of the size of the smaller version of GPT-OSS, which the smaller version, I believe, is around 20 billion parameters. So pretty impressive release here from Google and the Gemma team. So it emphasizes tooling and compatibility across the Gemma family and common frameworks, making it easier to fine-tune and deploy specialized models rather than rely on a single giant large language model. Yo, I've been extremely bullish on small language models for multiple years before the big companies were even making them. And I said, the future of large language models is running hundreds or thousands of small language models. And here we go as an example, right? The fact that you have, and you know, we've shared the benchmarks in our newsletter, a very capable Gemma 3 model that's less than a billion parameters, right? You can imagine how in the future you might be able to run hundreds of these instances on a single machine, all offline. So not incurring any ongoing API costs, not having to worry about data security because nothing is leaving, your local machine. So, you're not having to work with a cloud provider as well. So pretty big news. I know it might seem kind of niche, right? For many of our listeners, like, all right, Jordan, why are you talking about small language models? Well, it's the future of how we use AI, right? And obviously, even the large language models in the future are going to become smaller just because of better pre-training, post-training techniques. So yeah, small language models like Google's Gemma 3, definitely worth keeping an eye on. All right, here's news story worth keeping an eye on. This one's strange and definitely unique. But the U.S. federal government is weighing a stake in the company Intel as Intel fights to rebuild. So, according to Bloomberg reports, the Trump administration is in talks to take an equity stake in Intel. And that news late last week pushed Intel shares up about 7%. So the proposed investment is aimed at helping finance Intel's factories in the U.S., such as the one under construction in Ohio, where accelerated funding could shorten build timelines and increase domestic production capacity for advanced AI chips. So Intel is effectively the only U.S. company, at least right now, able to produce the fastest leading edge chips here domestically in the U.S., which makes it a strategic target for federal support compared with companies like NVIDIA, TSMC, and Samsung, which do also operate U.S. fabs, but are headquartered, or some of their main operations actually take place abroad. So the renowned talks between the federal government and Intel come after a White House meeting between President Trump and Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan. And Tan took over Intel earlier this year amid criticism over Intel's AI chip competitiveness and scrutiny of his international ties. So Intel confirmed Tan's commitment to U.S. security interests, but declined to comment on reports about the government's stake, saying it would not respond to speculation. So potential impacts of a government stake include faster access to capital for fabrication construction, possible procurement or national security conditions tied to funding, and increased federal oversight or governance influencing strategic decisions. So while the U.S. government has mechanisms like this in place for funding public companies, such as for funding private companies like the Railroad Retirement System or the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, it's a pretty rare practice for the federal government to take a direct equity stake in a large publicly traded company like Intel. So I think a lot of people, including myself, were a little taken aback by this news, right? I remember seeing the initial headline, which we shared in our newsletter last week, and I'm like, wait, what? Why is the U.S. government potentially taking an equity stake in a company like Intel? So, I just read you the bullet point explanation. So on some fronts, sure, it might make sense, but on just about every other front, this is a head scratcher for me personally, right? And also, what this means for other large companies that are doing the majority of the heavy lifting when it comes to AI chip production, such as NVIDIA and AMD, right? So obviously, it seems like it may be an unfair advantage to Intel here if they are getting U.S. government support. You'll have to see how the different laws and chip restrictions may or may not change, right? And if that could benefit Intel. We've seen a lot of news over the past year or two. As an example, different chip restrictions on NVIDIA, they've been lifted, reinforced, lifted again. So we'll have to see if this deal does go through with the U.S. government taking an official equity stake in Intel, which again is a wild thing to think about. We'll have to see if any of those chip restrictions change, because at that point, things could get a little dicey. Yeah. Douglas here saying, I wonder if this is the administration's path for a government bailout. Not sure. Regardless, very strange story here with the U.S. government taking potentially an official equity stake in Intel. All right. Things are about to get weird. So, this is so gosh. All right. Anyways, there's like two stories this week. It's just weird even talking about these things out loud and the fact that we're at this point. So the first one is consumer groups are demanding a probe of Grok or XAI's new not safe for work Imagine tool. So there is a letter from consumer protection groups asking the Federal Trade Commission and all 50 state attorneys general to urgently investigate XAI's Grok after The Verge, the publication, found that Grok's new Imagine image to video generating tool produced topless deep fake videos of Taylor Swift, highlighting risks of non-consensual sexualized content and weak moderation. So according to The Verge, Grok's recently released Imagine tool generated topless deep fake videos of Taylor Swift during the outlet's first tests, showing the model can produce recognizable sexualized celebrity deepfakes without explicit prompting for a real person. So the Consumer Federation of America led a letter signed by 14 consumer protection groups, including the Tech Oversight Project and Epic, asking the Federal Trade Commission and all 50 state attorneys general, plus DC, to open an investigation into Grok's safety and moderation practices. So the letter warns that although Grok currently restricts its this is the new spicy not safe for work mode for user uploaded real photos, the tool still creates nude videos from images it generates, which can be used to craft images that look real, specific people raising harms for those depicted and for minors. So, signers of the letter explicitly reference The Verge's report as the trigger for the complaint and highlights the broader risk that removing limits on user photo uploads would unleash a torrent of obviously non consensual deepfakes. So, the letter also criticizes the platform's policy trajectory, noting XAI and its leader there, Elon Musk, have a pattern of removing moderation safeguards under what they call a free speech rationale, which consumer groups see as actually amplifying harm. So, the consumer groups are seeking an official inquiry now, arguing that regulation and enforcement are needed to prevent scalable abuse as image and video generation capabilities mature. So, this is extremely, and I don't think you need me to say this, but this is extremely troubling and problematic, right? And just the amount of harm that can be done by this newer technology is unspeakable, right? When I saw this announced last week, if I'm being honest, I even thought about like, do we even share this news, right? It's like, do we even share this? Because that actually just promotes the tool as well by letting more and more people know about it. So I even said, like, I mean, there's some things in AI right now that it's just being misused in just such ugly ways, right? I even find myself scratching my head, like, is this even worth sharing? Right. But it's gotten to the point now that, the federal government could get involved. I mean, it's just getting really gross and out of control. And I mean, obviously, not surprised coming from Elon Musk, who, I mean, look at his recent track record and how he's treating AI, right? It's more like, I don't know, appealing to 13-year-old boys or something. I'm not sure what exactly is going on and why Grok and XAI even released this tool to begin with. I guess it's because they realized that no one wanted to use their XAI Grok chatbot to begin with. So then they had to release a not safe for work video generator. So, yuck. All right. Speaking of Elon Musk, after going back and forth with OpenAI CEO Sam Altman on Twitter about a few things last week, now there's news that actually Sam Altman could be a co-founder of a new company that could challenge Elon Musk's other company, Neuralink. According to the Financial Times, OpenAI and Sam Altman are preparing to support a new company called Merge Labs. It is a brain-computer interface startup that will directly compete with Elon Musk's Neuralink, and it's marking the latest in a high-profile escalation in the rivalry between the two tech billionaires, Elon Musk and Sam Altman. So, according to reports, Merge Labs is raising fresh capital at an $850 million valuation, with plans to seek roughly $250 million from OpenAI's venture team and other investors. So, reportedly, Sam Altman would be a co-founder of Merge Labs and help launch the company alongside Alex Blania, but he will not have any day-to-day operational role and will not personally invest, according to the Financial Times. So the company's name reflects the Silicon Valley idea of the merge, when human cognition and machine intelligence are tightly integrated. Altman has written publicly about the concept and predicted high bandwidth interfaces could arrive soon. So, according to reports, Merge aims to build those BCI, or brain-computer interfaces, that take advantage of recent AI advancements and improved electronic components for collecting neural signals, positioning itself among a new wave of startups in the BCI space. And obviously, one of the biggest and most notable in there is Neuralink, funded by Elon Musk in 2016, which recently raised a new round of $650 million at a $9 billion valuation. So the Altman Musk rivalry has deep roots, obviously. Both helped start OpenAI. Musk was one of the original funders and left the board in 2018 after clashes with Altman, and the two have since launched competing AI ventures in public disputes. So the FTC notes, the Financial Times notes that Altman has also backed adjacent tech ventures such as World, an eyeball scanning digital ID project, Oklo, which is a nuclear fission project, and Helion, which illustrates his broad interest in foundational technologies beyond OpenAI. All right. Real quick, before we get going, a quick word from our partners at Google.
This podcast is supported by Google. Hey everyone, David here, one of the product leads for Google Gemini. If you dream it and describe it, VO3 and Gemini can help you bring it to life as a video. Now with incredible sound effects, background noise, and even dialogue. Try it with the Google AI Pro plan or get the highest access with the Ultra plan. Sign up at gemini.google to get started and show us what you create.
All right. A bold move from Perplexity is the topic for our next piece of AI news. So Perplexity has submitted an unsolicited $34.5 billion all-cash offer for Google's Chrome browser. So according to Reuters, Perplexity AI made a $34.5 cash offer to buy Google's Chrome browser, a move far above Perplexity's last valuation of $14 billion. This one's funny because, then a lot of other, startups kind of made jokes that they're going to acquire Perplexity if Perplexity acquires Google. So the bid is unsolicited and comes as browsers regain strategic importance for access to search traffic, user data, and distribution of AI features. So Perplexity said it would keep Chromium open source, right? Which is Chromium is what Perplexity uses for its Comet browser. That's what Microsoft uses for its Edge browser, and what so many of these other AI browsers use. Well, they use Chromium, but Perplexity said if its bid were to be accepted, which it probably won't, it would keep Chromium open source and invest $3 billion over 2 years and leave Chrome's default search engine unchanged. So the company did not disclose funding details, but said multiple funds have offered to finance the deal. Perplexity has raised about $1 billion to date from backers, including NVIDIA and SoftBank. So Google has not offered Chrome for sale officially and is expected to resist strongly, given Chrome's central role in Google's AI and search strategy, although there is an ongoing U.S. antitrust case where the Department of Justice has sought remedies, including maybe having Google sell its Chrome browser. So legal analysts cited by Reuters say any forced sale, where Google might have to actually sell Chrome, would spark a lengthy appeal that could go to the DC Circuit and possibly the Supreme Court. So a transfer of Chrome, whether voluntary or ordered, could take many years. So Perplexity already operates, like I said, their AI browser called Comet, and acquiring Chrome would instantly widen its user base and competitive heft versus rivals like OpenAI, which are also developing an AI browser. All right, so like I said, this is not exactly a serious inquiry, although it is grabbing a ton of headlines. All right. Joe says, seems like the opposite of an anti-monopoly practice. I don't think necessarily anyone was taking this very seriously, although it is making the headlines in the media. I think Perplexity CEO does that a lot, comes out with some bold claims and just tries to get, essentially more headlines or PR for Perplexity. All right. Now there's a race to free from AI companies. because we talked about last week in our AI news show, OpenAI's deal with the federal government, and now Anthropic is trying to match it. So Anthropic is making Claude available to federal agencies in the U.S. across the legislative, judicial, and executive branches for $1 for the next year, seeking wide government adoption immediately after OpenAI made a similar low-cost deal for ChatGPT. So, according to reports, Anthropic will provide its Claude model to all three branches of the U.S. government for $1 for the next year, aiming to remove cost barriers to adoption. So the timing of Anthropic's move follows OpenAI's near identical move, striking a deal with the federal government for ChatGPT enterprise seats for the federal government for $1 per year per agency. So the aggressive pricing from both Anthropic and OpenAI is intended to create reliance within the public sector as agencies integrate AI into administrative and mission critical workflows to save time and reduce costs. Anthropic says the offer includes Claude for Enterprise and Claude for Government, which are positioned to handle sensitive, unclassified work and support rapid implementation across agencies. So Claude has been added to the GSA, or the General Services Administration schedule, to simplify procurement, which could speed agency onboarding and standardize purchasing. So Anthropic will reportedly provide technical support to help agencies embed Claude into productivity and mission workflows, promising hand-on assistance for adoption and deployment. So the low-cost offer raises questions about long-term procurement strategy, data governance, and dependence on commercial models for public functions. So agencies are going to have to weigh short-term savings against long-term risk and vendor locked-in issues, security, and oversight. So no real big surprise here, but we've seen a huge push in 2025 to get both either Claude licenses or ChatGPT licenses into the hands of as many public institutions as possible. So both in the US government and particularly Google and OpenAI have gone extremely hard in the paint to try to get as many students, universities, high school, middle schools, right? They're just trying to get as many free licenses out there to as many people as possible, right? Just to hope that if you get it into the federal government, if you get it into public schools across the U.S., that will translate to all of those people wanting to use it in the private sector, right? So it's essentially saying, hey, we want to make all of our AI chatbots publicly available, and we want the data as well to train on that, right? You have to say, like, okay, what are these companies? What are OpenAI and Anthropic in these cases getting? Well, you're getting the partnership, and at some point there has to be some sort of data pass through. So I'm sure reporting will show that in the near future. But yeah, for now, pretty big story. All right, another big story: Apple reportedly making another AI pivot. So, according to Bloomberg, Apple is planning a slate of new AI-driven hardware and services aiming at regaining momentum after recent AI software setbacks. So, according to reports from Bloomberg, Apple is developing a tabletop companion robot targeted for 2027 that could serve as a virtual companion. In Bloomberg reports, this robot is the centerpiece of the company's future AI hardware strategy. So Apple plans also a smart speaker with a display slated for release next year with AI baked in, signaling a renewed push into entry-level smart home hardware to broaden its ecosystem reach. And also competing now with Amazon's Alexa and their partnership with a smarter Alexa with partnership with Anthropic and Claude. So, getting back to Apple, new home security cameras and an integrated Apple security system are also reportedly in development and are intended to automate household functions with AI and make the Apple ecosystem stickier for consumers. So, Apple is also reportedly working on much more lifelike Siri, powered by generative AI advancements, reflecting a priority to catch up after criticism that it lagged behind in the Gen AI revolution. So, this announcement follows disappointing sales for Apple's Vision Pro headset in years of limited design changes to Apple's flagship devices. So, Apple shares rose about 2% after Bloomberg's report, showing investor optimism that a refreshed product pipeline could revive Apple's growth. So, Apple CEO Tim Cook told employees the product pipeline is amazing and hinted that some items will be revealed soon, while others will come later. So, this move positions Apple to challenge companies like Samsung and Meta in new hardware categories and could invite competition from AI first entrants. So, big surprise. Apple reportedly trying to pivot because it couldn't keep up or even compete in the AI software game. So, obviously, if you've been listening to the show for any time, I wouldn't even say that I'm personally hard on Apple and their Apple intelligence, right? Which is just non-existent because there are multiple class action lawsuits against Apple because Apple was essentially promoting all of these AI features that literally just didn't come out. Right. So consumer groups and legal groups have launched multiple class action lawsuits against Apple specifically for promoting all of this smart AI in its devices that literally just didn't happen or didn't work or had to get pulled because they didn't work. So Apple very clearly lacking on the AI model side and getting any sort of AI momentum into its software in billions of devices worldwide. So instead, they're going to reportedly pivot to other AI hardware, such as a robot companion in smarter homes. Do I have any faith that Apple will pull this off? Not in the short term, right? This may be a long-term possibility for Apple. And yes, they are sitting on literally mountains of cash. But if anything, they've proven over the last couple of years that they cannot compete in AI. So if you can't compete in AI software, can you compete in AI hardware? Maybe. I mean, this is one of the areas where I think Apple still does have the team to compete on the hardware side. Whereas on the software side, so many of their top AI and machine learning researchers have been poached by OpenAI, Google, and mainly Meta. So I don't know how they're going to create the software that's going to power all of the hardware, but we're already seeing 2027 dates on this, which means I'm guessing it's going to get pushed to the latter half of the decade. So maybe we might see some of this hardware by 2028, 2029. But I don't have a ton of confidence that Apple is going to be able to pull off the software that can actually power this AI hardware. Yeah, I like this comment here from Robert on LinkedIn saying Apple is like the boy that cried wolf, but with AI. And big bogey face here on YouTube, literally just saying Apple intelligence with a facepalm emoji. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. All right. Our last piece of AI news, another very troubling one that's also hard to read. So Reuters has obtained a report, or sorry, has obtained an internal Meta document titled Gen AI Content Risk Standards that contained example prompts, notes, and annotations related to their generative AI behavior. Some examples described as sexualizing interactions with minors. So this has led to a Senate probe that has been launched after these leaked Meta documents showed these problematic AI training examples of how Meta's AI should interact with minors. U.S. Senator Josh Hawley, the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee on Crime and Counterterrorism, sent a letter to Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg on Friday requesting that Meta preserve all documents and all of its Gen AI training documentation, a list of Meta products covered by these standards that were reported on by Reuters, and related risk views and incident reports and names of employees responsible for decisions that made it into this leaked policy. So, Howley cited a specific example from the leaked materials that he described as allowing a chatbot to call an 8-year-old's body a work of art and a masterpiece. And he framed the materials as evidence of inadequate guardrails around AI interactions with children. So Meta did provide a statement to the publishing platform Gizmodo saying its policy prohibits sexualizing children and sexualized role play between adults and minors. And the company said the examples and notes in the leaked file were errors inconsistent with their policy and have been removed. So, I mean, we'll see what actually happens with this probe and if they were errors, or if this was actually approved by multiple levels of Meta's administration. So Reuters reporting also noted that other content categories in the internal materials, including language suggesting that the company's legal reviewers had at times allowed fabricated statements about public figures if the system included a disclaimer that the content was not accurate. So according to internal material as reported, the company explicitly forbids certain behaviors, including hate speech and definitive legal, healthcare, or financial advice that begins with, quote unquote, I recommend. But the leak really has been centered around this acceptance of sensualized chats with children. Again, very disgusting, so much so that I don't even want to go into it in depth. We did share about it in the newsletter, but Howley's letter states that he is opening a formal investigation into Meta using his subcommittee's authorities, and he requested immediate preservation of relevant records, which is a standard step prior to document production and potential subpoenas. So a lot of troubling and kind of disgusting AI news this week. It's one of those things, right? I would love if we could only focus on the positive and the new capabilities and AI, solving world problems, right? Finding and discovering new proteins or new cures for diseases that have plagued researchers for decades. But the reality of AI, and I've been saying this literally from day one, it will create as much bad as good. So, unfortunately, I think we do have to talk about these big stories, such as Meta AI's reported acceptance of sensual chats with children. Right? It's kind of like saying, "Hey, here's how you can tiptoe the fine line and have sensual chats with children under the age of 18." Gross. All right. So let's talk about what's new and what's next. A ton of essentially quick bullet points, highlights that we didn't have time to get to, but that are worth knowing. So here we go. Quick rundown, because there was a lot. So Google announced they're working on a deep research API for developers. Grok 4 has rolled out some free access for all users. Anthropic just released a 1 million token context inside their API. Google has updated Gemini with the ability to have temporary chats and model personalization. Speaking of that, Claude can now recall past conversations with a feature similar to ChatGPT's memory. ChatGPT rolled out Gmail and calendar connectors, which previously you could only use in deep research. Now you can use them in normal, faster chats. Mistral released their newest model, Medium 3.1. Google updated AI Studio with integration to GitHub, which I think low-key is actually big news. Google is working on projects for Gemini, a feature similar to ChatGPT and Claude. Tipsters have found references for a ChatGPT browser for Mac OS, codenamed Aura. So we could be getting closer to that reported OpenAI browser we've been talking about here on the show for a couple of weeks. Speaking of OpenAI, they teased from their official, one of their official Twitter accounts, teased an update to their popular image gen model, although there were no specifics or timeline released. But keep an eye out for an update to their very popular and viral image gen product. Agent scheduling in ChatGPT has started to roll out. I've tested it myself. It's a little clunky, but being able to schedule agents, pretty cool inside of ChatGPT. Also, Google is teasing a new Magic View mode in Notebook LM, which looks like a new way to visualize data, although there's very few details or no release date yet. All right. That is a wrap. Let's very quickly highlight the main news stories we talked about on this week's AI News That Matters. So OpenAI has softened GPT-5's tone after Backlash and uploaded its messaging limit to 3,000 for paid users. A new study had showed some significant drops for publishing sites after Google's AI news summaries. Google has debuted Gemma 3270M, a tiny model built for on-device AI. The U.S. government is weighing a financial stake in Intel as the company fights to rebuild. Consumer groups are demanding a probe of Grok's new, not safe for work, Imagine tool. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and OpenAI are reportedly teaming to back merge labs to rival Elon Musk's Neuralink on the brain-computer interface side. Perplexity made a very bold offer to buy Google Chrome, although most industry insiders are not expecting that to see the light of day. Anthropic is offering Claude to all U.S. government branches for only $1, and Apple is reportedly planning robots, a Siri overhaul, and a smart home push as they shift their priorities to AI hardware. And a U.S. Senate probe has launched after leaked Meta documents show some problematic AI examples on how their model was reportedly trained in sensual talk with minors. All right, a ton going on, and there's always going to be even more. So you can spend literally hours a day trying to keep up with all of this AI news and what it means for your career, your company, your department. Don't do that. All you got to do, join us on Mondays. We bring you the AI news that matters here on this very podcast, as well as in our newsletter. But you can also just read our newsletter every single day. So each and every day, we recap the podcast highlights, maybe something you missed, some additional content. But each and every day, we do just bring you some of the top AI news stories in our newsletter. So don't waste time. Just go to our website at youreverydayai.com. So if this was helpful, if you're listening on the podcast, please leave us a rating. Please subscribe to the show. We would really appreciate that. And I'd appreciate it if you join us tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
This podcast is supported by Google. Hey everyone, Shrestha here from Google DeepMind. The Gemini 2.5 family of models is now generally available. 2.5 Pro, our most advanced model, is great for reasoning over complex tasks. 2.5 Flash finds the sweet spot between performance and price. And 2.5 Flash Lite is ideal for low-latency, high-volume tasks. Start building in Google AI Studio at ai.dev.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.